Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another webinar from Borderless. We are super excited to be here today again to talk to you on the fourth of our four-part webinar series this month. Today, we're going to be talking to you all about earn settlement. Now, there's been a lot changing in relation to settlement. No doubt you're aware of some of these changes, so we're going to bring you up to date with the latest, what's happening, and particularly one of the key things we're going to be talking about is what the 10-year indefinite leave to remain rule means for your sponsored workforce, because I imagine that is a very key question for many of the people joining the webinar here today. So by way of introduction, my name is Matthew Bond. I'm the CEO and co-founder here at Borderless, and we'll share a little bit more about what Borderless does in a second, but essentially we're a digital immigration and compliance platform to support your business and your sponsored workers with all of these matters. I'm going to hand it to my colleague Lal to give a little bit of an introduction to herself as well.
Good morning all, thank you so much for joining. My name is Lal, I'm the Senior Immigration Advisor here at Borderless. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat, I'll be there monitoring.
Thanks, Lal. And Lal's going to take the middle section of today's webinar, so I'll be handing over to her in a second. So at Borderless, we built the company really with one key important mission in mind, and that's to build a world where borders are no longer barriers, where anyone can move anywhere seamlessly and safely. Now, if you're a business involved in immigration and sponsorship, or if you've been supporting sponsored workers through this journey, you will know that the processes, the systems are anything but smooth and efficient, and that's exactly where Borderless comes in, to simplify processes and ensure compliance for you as a business, but also to make sure your sponsored workers are well supported as well. So that's what motivates us here at Borderless, and that's the world we're building towards. Now, what are we going to be talking about today in terms of our agenda? So the first thing today is we're going to be talking about what the landscape of settlement looks like at the moment. Then we're going to be describing what's changing in the world of settlement. Now, obviously, very lots of political decisions and changes that are happening. So we're going to go into a lot of those details as well, and then turn it back to you and your business, what it means for your business, for your sponsored workers, and really help you to get ahead for the business to make sure that you are having the right conversations, you know what's going to be happening, and that you're making sure that everything is set up accordingly. Now, if this is the first of the Borderless webinars you've joined, then you'll know that we love to keep these sessions super interactive. So I'll go into how we do that in just a second. But just to really clarify, this is the fourth part of our CPD Academy June series. So every webinar you join, these webinars, you get one CPD credit. This is the fourth session on earn settlement. We started already 4 weeks ago with getting started with the world of sponsorship. We did a masterclass on certificate of sponsorship, assignment, renewals, all of that kind of information. And a third one last week on home office compliance. So if you've missed any of those webinar sessions, you can go to the Borderless website, you can find the recordings of those sessions, you can watch them, you can share them as appropriate. So this is a session here today all about earn settlement, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So as I mentioned before, we love to keep these sessions super interactive. So there's lots and lots of live Q&A questions as we go. So we're going to have a question for you in just a second. We also love to hear from you, so please do interact, chat with us. Throughout the session, there's a public chat, there's a private chat that you can speak to us via, and of course all these sessions are recorded, and we'll share the webinar slides afterwards. Also at the end of the session, we'll be running a quick feedback, so if you have 5 seconds at the end of the webinar, please do leave your feedback. What was great? What else would you like to see? And we can go from there. It really helps us to bring really valuable content for every webinar we deliver. So the first question we'd love to understand from the audience here today is what have you spoken to your workers about their plans for settlement? So I'm just going to release a poll now, but essentially we'd love to know, have you been discussing settlement in depth? Is this a topic that's come up in conversation between you and your sponsored workforce? What are their plans for settlement? Are they planning to stay in the UK? Are they planning to move into a different country? Are they going back to their home country? Have you spoken to and had a conversation about that? So if you discuss that in depth, has it come up a little bit, but it hasn't necessarily hasn't happened in great detail, or you're not sure what those answers are? Is it something, a conversation you haven't had at all, but you're planning to have this, or hadn't really had any thoughts around it? You haven't really got any plans to discuss it. And of course, there's no wrong answer here. It's just for us to understand where you are in these settlement conversations. A reminder, that's all about indefinite leave to remain, potential citizenship. That will depend a lot on when individuals came to the UK in the first place, what their plans are, how long they're going to be staying with your business, where they're looking to go, where they're looking to put down roots, etc. So let us know where you are in your conversations with sponsored workers and their plans for settlements. Have you discussed it in detail, in depth? Have you discussed it a little bit? Have you not really had a conversation but you're planning to, or are you not really planning to discuss it yet? Perhaps you're joining this webinar before you do that. So let us know where you are there. I'll leave that poll open for just a few more seconds. Great, thank you. That's really helpful for us to keep calibrating these webinar sessions. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Lal now, who's going to be talking us through settlement today, and then going into some of the changes that are coming through as well. So over to you, Lal.
Thank you so much, Matt. So yeah, we're going to be talking about settlement today, and particularly about what that means, what's being proposed, and what that means for you as a business, and what you can do to prepare for that. So what we do know is that settlement is moving from what would appear to have been a fixed timeline to something that you'll have to earn. So it's almost like a points-based system. So what we're shifting from is what used to be quite simple: 5 years, you remain in the UK, you have a job, and at the end of that, you can qualify for indefinite leave to remain. Now we're shifting to something slightly more ambiguous. We have a rough idea of what that means and what we know, but concrete evidence hasn't really been presented by the government. So we'll talk about what is changing. Sorry, next slide, Matt. So yeah, briefly touching on the current routes. So yeah, for certain routes for immigration, typically you'll have five years to qualify for indefinite leave to remain. You do have some family routes where you can qualify within 5 years or 10 years, depending on income thresholds. You've also got other longer residence periods as well that are up to 10 years, and those are usually for people who have slightly precarious immigration circumstances, or they might have entered illegally or have been an overstayer for some period. But even those individuals can qualify, and they do have that opportunity to do so. The key requirements with all of this is that you have continuous lawful residence, that at least the salary thresholds are met for the work routes that you're on. The worker is adhering to their visa conditions, and that at the base level, their English language is a high competency. And also when you get to indefinite leave to remain, you'll also have a life in the UK test that they'll have to sit. So we're looking at what's changing, and I think that's the question that's kind of been sitting with all of us for at least this year so far. We did expect to have some clarity by March, but that didn't come. And I think that's probably a testament to the 200,000 consultation responses that the government had received. So I think there's a lot of pressure from their end in terms of what they need to do. But if we're looking at timelines, we know that in May 2025, the government set out the proposal in the immigration white papers. Around November to February was a consultation period where they did get 200,000 responses, which is a good amount of advocacy from not only those impacted, but also businesses that are advocating for their workers. And then now we're in 2026, and the government is still analysing responses. Like I said, we thought we'd have some sort of clarity by March, but it doesn't appear that will be the case. We'll probably hear back at some point in August, which is what the government's target is, to bring at least some sort of a written proposal out. But again, knowing how the delays are quite common with the government, I mean, we'll have to prepare for autumn, but we don't know for certain what date anything is going to be announced. So next slide, please. So what we're looking at now is in terms of what the earned part is. So what does that actually mean? What the government is proposing is not only shifting the qualifying route from 5 years to 10 years, but also they've given us some clarity on what that means. So what they're saying is you can reduce the amount of time that you'll have to qualify. If, for example, you're a high earner, you're contributing high taxes to the UK, you're contributing to the economy, that your skills level and English language is to a high degree. So that not only includes higher skilled roles. So for example, they'll probably prioritize people who are maybe doctors, engineers, as opposed to somebody that is working in medium or lower skilled role. And they're also looking at public contribution. They haven't really given us much clarity on what that means, but I think what we heard roughly in the grapevine is if, for example, that you offer voluntary work, that the work that you do is recognized within the public, that you're contributing positively to the public good. But what they do say is that only one reduction will apply per person. And that's quite interesting. Instead of collaborating all of that into reducing that period, they're saying that they'll only look at one reduction. Again, nothing concrete's been announced, so it might be at the end of the consultation period where they've announced a proposal that maybe they'll consider more reductions. But again, that's not something that's formally been formalized. So why is the government doing this? Again, it's another question that everyone's asking themselves. This is all part of a long and wider goal of reducing net migration. So what they're trying to do is retain the migrant workers that they do have in the UK by giving them a longer route to qualify, but also I guess removing those that don't want to be here or that don't want to contribute for that longer duration. Whether or not that's fair, obviously, I mean, we would say that is pretty unfair. They are also rewarding long-term contribution before granting permanence. So what they're trying to do is essentially the term itself, earning your settlement in the UK. They're tying settlement to economic value and integration, where previously, I mean, what they were saying is that a lot of lower skilled individuals were entering the UK, and right now what they want to do is to have individuals that will boost the economy, that will drive growth. And then there's also, all of this is just part of a broader push to strengthen, to have stricter immigration control throughout. It's not only within the qualifying routes, there's also a push for, creating stricter control around asylum applications. So it is across the board. It seems like they're trying to drive or reduce those entering the country. So when we look at the risks of having a longer route to qualifying, 10 years is definitely a long time, and there's a lot of policy shifts, governments change. So what that might look like today will probably be different at the end of a 10-year period. Things might change, things might be announced, but currently there is a lot of uncertainty in terms of what employers will have to do and what workers will have to do to not only maintain their sponsorship, but also what employers will have to do in terms of the costs involved. So the longer route does definitely mean that there's a lot more dependence on sponsorship, which is interesting given that the Home Office is also with haste revoking licenses. So holding onto your sponsor license to facilitate workers remaining within the business and within the country is also equally important. Salary thresholds may rise as well. So you must keep your sponsored workers for longer. What that means for businesses and budgeting is also, it's also going to cause a lot of problems. It's going to cause a lot of ambiguity. There's also an important point to note about when it comes to qualifying periods, it's all contingent on having continuous residence. So at any point, if there's a gap in that where the worker is considered an overstayer, at that point, it's almost like it's impacting their qualifying route to ILR. So making sure, for example, the best example I could give is making sure that, for example, that you have the certificate sponsorship in place, that you're ready to renew workers' visas if you want to keep them, is important not only for the business itself, but also for those workers in protecting their qualifying period, and to not cause any sort of interruption to that. Next slide. So yeah, what that means for you and your people, I did touch on it slightly before, but there's a lot of impact not only on businesses but also on the workers. So what we're saying here is that the workers will be more dependent on their jobs. There's also higher stakes on salary, employment gaps. They are also it's obviously less certain for workers as well in terms of it's uncertain in terms of you as an employer to know what years of sponsorship to offer, but also on the worker as well in terms of what kind of roles will actually reduce their qualifying period. So the important thing, again, I've already touched on, is aim for stable, higher salaries, avoid gaps in visa status, so making sure that there's a smooth transition from extending sponsorships or even changing employment, and also consider alternative routes if that is available to the individual, given circumstances. So what this means for businesses and planning ahead. So what we...
Shall I jump in on this? Do you want to go through this one, Lal, or shall I jump in?
No, go for it.
Cool. Thanks, Lal. That was great to see. And yeah, I'm going to cover the last section here, which is going to be talking a lot more about how this impacts your business and how we're going to essentially get ahead to think about these things, because obviously lots, as Lal's already described, a lot is changing with the world of ILR. Obviously, lots still uncertain. We're going to get more clarity towards the end of the year on what that's going to mean. We'll continue bringing those updates now, but we can share some more information about what this is going to mean. So, as Lal's already touched on, a longer route for settlement for your sponsored workers means that essentially you as a business are going to be sponsoring those individuals for a lot longer period of time. It used to be on average of 5 years as the baseline. Now we're talking about a baseline of 10 years. So that's essentially double the amount of time you're going to be sponsoring your workers. So what does that mean? Retention is really, really key. So you're invested with your sponsored workers, you together with them are invested much more over that longer horizon. It means as well that there's a lot more operational complexity, that instead of monitoring status for those 5 years, it's going to be about those 10-year windows now. So more visa renewals to track, to support, more involvement from your HR team, your legal team, and likely obviously cost considerations related to those sponsorships as well. So essentially all of that stuff that used to happen over a 5-year horizon, now starting to happen over that 10-year horizon. And so just think about what that's going to mean operationally for your business as well. So thinking about that and what does that mean, one of those elements is obviously effective financial planning for that 10-year cycle. So when you're thinking about the cost of sponsorship, now obviously there's different costs involved, that one-off COS assignment fee and that ongoing immigration skills charge, making sure you're thinking about, okay, what's the cost of that each year? What's that going to be over the longer period of time? How are we going to make sure I can budget and forecast accordingly for that now? Of course, those immigration skill charges do need to be paid up front, but they are pro rata refundable if someone is leaving employment. So you can hopefully understand, what that worker is, how that worker is within your business, kind of their contributions, and thinking about it over that entire life cycle. So thinking through everything from a bit more of a budgeting and forecasting perspective too. Adjusting your strategy, so making sure you prioritize the roles where sponsorship is effective for your business, and actually where you want to be investing in retention and progression. So who are you offering sponsorship for? Who are the right individuals for your business? Who's going to be with you for the long run? And those are the individuals to prioritize there. And then making sure you're building it into your planning capability. So treating sponsorship as that core workforce enablement lever, working with the finance, the HR, the leadership team to make sure that you have access to sponsorship. It is an effective component of your strategy, and it can also differentiate you as well. So really thinking about sponsorship as a growth lever for your business is really, really important there too. And then thinking about, for those individuals, of course, 10 years is a long time. So have you built effective career pathway and progression frameworks within your organization for people to move up there? Of course, that has a compliance implication too. So making sure that you are updating COS, renewing visas, etc. as that happens, if people are changing roles and responsibilities, making sure the salary growth is competitive over time, making sure your time retention support to visa and settlement milestones, and then, of course, supporting those individuals with their ILR preparation when they're eligible. And that's something in time Borderless will be able to support you and your sponsored workers with as well. So lots and lots of things to think about in terms of longer settlement periods. So, of course, as we've already articulated, a lot is changing with the world of settlement. So making sure you're staying ahead of the change is very, very important. So we'll keep bringing you all of the, as we always do, those immigration announcements, the digesting those policies, showing you what it means for you and your business. Of course, a lot will be changing. We've obviously got new changes in the political landscape as of this week. So we may see further changes to the immigration landscape and off the back of especially off the back of the consultation, when they analyze those 200,000 responses, that may lead to a slightly different configuration setup versus what we've been told so far. Making sure that you are adjustable and dynamic to those, so you're ready to pivot the business as appropriate. And I think really the key thing here, as we've highlighted, is making sure you are having those open and transparent conversations with sponsored staff. I imagine, if you are a sponsored worker, that is a very significant decision, which can really affect, of course, how long you're going to be able to spend in the UK and how far away from you are from those indefinitely to remain situated pathways. So make sure you're having those conversations early, transparently, is really, really important to make sure that you can give as much transparency as possible to that sponsored workforce. And of course, as ever, it's really important to know the rules and requirements for immigration, for compliance, for sponsorship. We've seen a record amount of sponsor licenses being revoked in the first quarter of 2026. And if it continues at the same rate, that's going to be about double the number from 2025. So another increase in compliance enforcement. So making sure that you are on top of all of those changes. So on the topic of compliance, we'd love to understand where everyone is managing and maintaining their compliance right now. So I'm going to release that poll if it's available. What tool are you managing to use to manage your compliance obligations right now, to manage that sponsored workforce? Are you using spreadsheets? Do you have no system in place? Are you using your HR system for these matters? Have you got external solicitors involved to help you with some third-party support? Or are you using Borderless for immigration and compliance matters? Let us know. If there's not the answer here, then also do let us know in the chat as well. So let us know how you're currently managing the compliance and sponsorship requirements. We typically see lots of different ways that individuals and businesses are managing compliance. Spreadsheets often a very common one. We have lots of customers who are using spreadsheets and then join Borderless to help simplify and improve those spreadsheets and tie Borderless into different systems that you're using for different purposes. HR systems is another one we see as well. Great systems to be using, but not really dedicated immigration and compliance solutions as well. So let us know how you're currently using, what tools and systems are you using to manage your compliance obligations. And just a reminder as well, if you have further questions, do please pop them in the chat. We'll be able to pick them up as we go through. And I'll leave this poll open for just a few more seconds. Thank you everyone for replying there. So really, when we typically see the way organizations are managing sponsorship, it's really, really important to go from a world of being reactive to external changes to potential home office audits to a system where you are more in control. And typically this is exactly one of the reasons we've built Borderless in the first place. So if you don't have appropriate systems in place, then you typically find that visa and salary data and information is spread across a number of different systems. It might be that HR system, it might be that spreadsheet, it might be another tool that you've set up. It makes it very difficult to track exactly who's affected by when. It means that renewals and thresholds need to be tracked quite manually by you. And then obviously when rules change, that means you will need to update those systems and processes. And so that's why we've built Borderless, to simplify a lot of those problems. One single record as a source of truth for every single sponsored worker, clear views on dates, visa expiry dates, thresholds, salaries, all of that information when it comes to immigration and compliance, proactive monitoring, tracking, alerts and notifications. And then, of course, we will bring you updates on information and change our platform and evolve the system to make sure that you are maintaining and staying at the forefront of immigration compliance as well. And so it's really, really critical, of course, to make sure that you're getting this right. It's not just about the fine. It's all about the business risk, the individuals who you sponsor, the entire organization you've built. Making sure that that is taken care of is clearly really very important. And that's exactly what Borderless can do for you. We can help you with the initial journey of getting started with the sponsor license, but also maintaining and managing compliance throughout that settlement journey. We are going to be keeping the system that's going to make sure you have that peace of mind when it comes to home office compliance. And so making sure that you're tracking all that information, you're able to respond accurately to a home office audit when it comes. They are quite stressful events. Making sure that that's in one system goes a long way to making sure that you can pass that audit And of course, we're going to notify you when the rules are changing as well. And so this is a quote directly from Katrina from one of the Good Oaks franchises. She says, having Borderless handle the compliance side gave us complete peace of mind. The transparency of the platform and expert advice from their team made a huge difference. And so that's great to see. We support a number of Good Oaks customers, and I'm glad to see that we are supporting them from a compliance perspective. So we'd love to understand, following today's session, what is your next step following today's session? Are you going to be speaking to Borderless from an immigration or compliance perspective? Is it much more about discussing ILR internally with your HR and your sponsored workers? Is it about joining future Borderless Academy webinar series? We'll be building a lot more as we go through in July, August, and later in the year as well. Or are you still deciding on exactly what you're looking to do with ILR? And if you do have those questions, if anything hasn't been answered in today's session, do please put them in the chat. We're going to have some time in just a moment to go through your questions on all of that very soon. So let us know what your your next step is post the session today. Speaking with Borderless, discussing ILR, definite leave to remain internally, subscribing to future Academy webinar series, still deciding what the next step for your organization is. And just a reminder, if you do have any questions, pop them in the chat. I can see there's a number of questions have come in as well, so do please put any more in, and we'll be able to pick them up as we go through into the Q&A session in just a little bit. Great, well, thank you everyone for responding to that one. So where can we go from here? Now, there's a couple of different resources available. So the first one is to head over to the Borderless website. You can scan this QR code directly. We've got lots and lots of handy calculators, guides, information on all sorts of questions you might have. What's the cost to get started with sponsorship? What rate can I pay sponsored workers depending on that occupational code? If I'm an authorizing officer, how do I maintain my compliance in an accurate rate? If you are going to go for, if you've just received notice of a home office inspection or audit, how do I get prepared for that? How do I make sure I'm always audit ready at that point in time? So loads of handy resources on the Borderless website that you can go and check out. If you'd like to speak to the Borderless team, you can actually scan the QR code just on the right-hand side. And that's going to drop you in a page. You just put your email, first name, last name, and you can book time to speak to Borderless. So you'll see our availability and you can actually grab time to speak with the Borderless team. That's another way to go there. And of course, if you'd like to check out the previous sessions we've done here, head over to the QR code on this one. This is all about the June series that we've built, all about sponsor licenses, COS requests, compliance, and settlement in one package for you. So head over to that if that's what you'd like to check out. Great. We're going to hand over to the Q&A session now. So I'm going to hand back over to Lul. What kind of questions do we get, Lul?
So we haven't had too many questions come through, but some interesting questions nonetheless. I wanted to quickly touch on an interesting point that Ruth had made about there being, 40,000 displaced workers who might have now had a gap in their employment through no fault of their own. What does that mean for their qualifying period for settlement? So I just want to make it clear that whenever the government do announce rule changes, there's always a list of exceptions that will always be considered. So I would imagine that the 200,000 settlement consultation responses that the government has received will probably most likely include this question amongst others around what would happen if there is a worker who, again, through no fault of their own, his status has also been impacted. So I think we'll stay tuned, see what happens, see what's been announced. But in any case, what I've seen a lot of the time is that the workers themselves are very clued up in terms of to make sure that they're not considered overstayers. So usually if they have lost their sponsor, they will try and take the steps to try and at least extend their stay by submitting another application. So I have seen a lot of proactivity from the candidates themselves in terms of protecting their status. So I would hope that the government will also offer that same protection to them as well. Matt, and you mentioned something about pro rata refundable that Martha wanted to follow up with. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, that was in relation to the immigration skills charge, Martha. So that's just to give clarity there. So if you sponsor someone for 3 years and the individual leaves, say, within that first year, or around the 1 year point, it means that about 2/3 of the immigration skills charge that you initially paid to the government is going to be refunded back to you. So that's why we like to think about that immigration skills charge more as an annual or even increments of 6-month charge, because even though you do need to pay it upfront to the government, you will get that money back on an approximately pro rata basis when if someone leaves employment before. Hope that clarifies that question.
We have a question from Minal saying, with regards to career paths, we can only assign our care workers under a certain code, so how can we progress them into other roles? So, I mean, with this, again, when it comes to role selection, that's another thing that the Home Office have recently placed emphasis on and clarified in the guidance. So where before they were speaking about roles and they had the keyword of genuine vacancy, they've now called it an eligible role, which means that the role needs to make sense for the business and needs to make sense for the individual. So it can't look like you're trying to create a role for a worker to try and get some sort of benefit for that worker. So in any case, it would unfortunately have to be that they continue remaining within the scope of their role, unless you find that there's a business need to promote them into a higher skilled role and you feel that they are more competent, they're qualified to do so. So I would say when it comes to the earned settlement, it shouldn't really be something that is almost like swayed, or decisions are swayed by I understand that people are very, that they have good intentions, but also there's a lot of compliance action taking place. So protecting the license, you have to weigh protecting the license, but also helping the workers. I think the best thing you can do is keep them in employment for as long as possible. So if they can only remain as care workers, it's just keeping them as care workers until we know more from the Home Office. Veronica said, we use spreadsheets, but in the process to sign up with Borderless. So looking forward to working with you, Veronica. Ruth said there was a 15-year settlement proposal for care workers. Yeah, that's true. We're still waiting to hear back on what that looks like exactly. The 5 to 10-year route is the standard for the skilled worker route in general, but obviously there's always a separate rule that's always announced for the care worker route. So we'll see what we can hear back from the government, and we can confirm with you once we have clarity.
And Ruth, obviously that might change subject to further consultations, because of course that is an incredibly long period of time.
Rachel asked, is it worth giving our current care workers a 5-year course/visa if they've already been here for 3 years with another employer in anticipation of this change? Yeah, I would probably recommend that as a starting point, just to at least give them enough of a grace period to adjust to any other changes, to give them that stability. What we do know that is that obviously if we're looking at this example here, they've been here for 3 years. If you were to offer them 2 more years, we know that for sure something's going to be announced in the next 2 years in terms of ILR qualifying dates and periods. So it probably is worth offering a higher period. You can recover the immigration skills charge that you've paid. So the worker at that point, if the rules are still 5 years, then at the point that they qualify, they can then switch over to indefinite leave. So it wouldn't be as costly for the business if you're still assigning the cause. You would have just paid for that immigration skills charge up front, but then recover that back if it has been unused.
Great. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining the webinar session today. I can't see more questions in the chat, so we'll wrap up now. But of course, if you would like to speak to the Borderless team, the QR code is just on the screen there. You can scan that. You can head over to the Borderless website. You can grab some time today, tomorrow, later in the week, as suits you best. This team. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. There's going to be a quick poll that pops up now. Please, if you seconds, just let us know what you found useful, where you think you'd also like to hear more information from Borderless, and we can go from there. We'll see you very soon on the next webinar session. Hope you have a great rest of the afternoon, rest of the week, and if you're in the southeast, hope you're not too affected by the upcoming heat wave. So see everyone later. Cheers. Bye-bye.